shaking, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Shay, and today we're going to start a new reading vlog, which is going to start a new series on the channel. So last month sometime, or end of August-ish, I reached out on Twitter for anybody who had books in a genre that I personally read and would like their books to be reviewed to give them to me, with the caveat that I may not get to them, but it was going to go into a jar and you had the chance of getting picked. So I had a lot of self-pub authors reach out to me, give me their books, lots of buzz here. I think I have 107 books in here, and the genres that I set forth were romance, fantasy, horror, sci-fi, mystery, thriller. So there are mostly fantasy in here. There's a couple of romances, I think a few mystery thrillers in here, but I have a jar with 107 books in them. So how this is going to work, I'm going to pick the book, and I am going to, if I can't find this book on KU or another source, I will reach out to the author to see if they have a review copy to give to me. If I love the book, I will then buy it after I read it. I am going to completely be giving very honest reviews, and I've been very honest about that. I'm not here to sugarcoat things. I'm not here to make things look good if I don't like it. I am free to DNF these books. I am just looking to give back to the self-published community. So that's what we're going to do. I will be running this series. I don't know if I'm going to do it monthly, every other month, just whenever I feel the need to, need some books to read. That's when I will do this series. I'm hoping 3 or 4 books per episode, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have to tell you, I do not know hardly any of these books in here. I've never heard of them before. I don't know anything about them. I don't have any bias. I'm going in completely blind, and here we go. Okay. I am going to pick the first one. I know there's also some chunky ones in here, but here's number 1. Okay, so if you can see, this is Cenozoic Dawn. I have no idea what this book is about. Okay, let's talk about Cenozoic Dawn. I am a little over 100 pages into this book, and first of all, I want to say that there's a lot of misconceptions about self-published books, that the writing is going to be terrible, that they're not going to be edited, and I want to say that that's false for the most part. I have read more polished self-published books than non-polished and poorly written self-published books, which leads me to tell you that this particular novel is very polished, no clunkiness, no weirdness, it flows well, tells a good cohesive story. So we are following our main character, who is a paleontologist, and she's on this dig site, and her boss leaves her in charge of this dig site, says he has something to do, and then turns out he dies, and she's mysteriously wondering how did he die, and we have her being approached by this woman from an organization that tells her that her boss was a part of something, and they have invited her to be a part of something, and she takes this on, and she realizes that there is a time machine that has been invented, and we can go back in the past to study things that have happened. So that's interesting. So we have kind of a time traveling machine, and we're going back to the dinosaur era. Now, I'm a little over 100 pages in, and while we have done that, we have gone back in time. I just feel like there's not a lot moving the story forward. I also feel like if I was a lay person and I was finding out that a time machine existed, I think that I would be a little bit more emotionally stressed out, wrought out than our main character seems to be. Like, she's just kind of going with the flow. Okay, there's a time machine, and she has a little bit of emotional distress, but not like I would think that she would. Like, I would be freaking out. I don't know, but that's interesting, and I'm wondering where the flow of the story is going. What is the actual purpose or point of this story? We have this woman, and she's going back in time, and that's where we are so far, and I'm figuring that I'm probably going to figure out what the gist of the story is going to be about soon. I do know that we have the mystery of where her boss went, how he died, because apparently he went off mission and nobody knows why he went off mission. And so that's going to be intriguing. I like a mystery element, but overall I still am enjoying my time. I am hoping that we'll kind of see some things start to happen here soon, and I'm gonna keep reading and I will check in when I get a little further along. But overall, I so far I am really enjoying my time with this one. Okay, let's talk about Cenozoic Dawn, because I have finally finished this book. So I really enjoyed the first half of the book, and then the second half is where it lost me just a little bit. So in the second half of the book, we come to our, main issues, climaxes. We're having really action-packed time, which all was fine. I think that the ending wrapped up a little bit too quickly. I think we could have expanded that, especially some explanations behind some things without being spoilery. We could have expanded all of that to make me understand it better. I do think that you have to really extend your belief in this book's case. My main issue with this book was the relationship between our main character and one of the other scientists, or whatever he was, on this journey. They had a one-night stand, and like I said, I think I said earlier, like he was like in love with her after the one-night stand. And not only that, but they're in, back in the day where dinosaurs exist, and they're in some kind of situation where one of the other scientist is talking about children and makes the comment like, oh, well, don't worry when you and so-and-so have children someday, like meaning that they're gonna have kids together, like off a one-night stand. They've literally had a one-night stand. They're not even together, and you have this coworker talking about how they're eventually going to get together and have children. I don't know. That whole thing, I could have cut that completely out, because I don't think that that serviced the story very well. And yeah, the ending was, again, like I said, a little too rushed for my liking. I overall think that the author is very talented. No clunky sentences, no sentence structure was perfect. The story flowed well. It's just a few things did not work in my favor. So I did wind up giving this one 3 stars, and highly recommend it though for somebody who likes time travel and dinosaurs, because what more could you want if you're into that kind of thing. So because I have finished that book, it's time for me to pick another book. So please hold while I find that jar. Okay, so here I am. I have the jar. And we're going to pick our second book out of here. I don't know anything about any of these books. This is going to be the one. Okay. So this is The Chase Begins. I have no idea anything about this book, so let me go look it up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have found the book. It's a rather short book. It looks like it is a series, but the first one is only 150 pages, and it is a whimsical new adult fantasy adventure set in a queer, normative, mysterious world begging to be explored. Love the cover. Interested to see how this is going to work out for me. So exciting, and I will pop back in when I get done. So let's talk about The Chase Begins by Amy Donnellan. I am 50% in. This is a very short novella. So I want to start by saying that I really honestly think that fantasy is not best told in a novella format. And the reason for that is because you don't have time to character build, you don't have time to world build, you don't have time to magic system build. You just don't have the time to do that. And so I think, again, that is detracting from my enjoyment of the story, because we have so many pages. I think this is like 150 pages to get your story across and make it make sense and make us care about the characters. And so this is a series of novellas, I believe. I like the story. I really do. I think the story would be great if we had a longer story, if that makes any sense. But if you want to know what this book is about, we open up with this very powerful person has broken out of prison. And so we don't know what this person has done, what they got to be in this prison, how they got to be there. You know, very, very dangerous person we know. And then we're on the hunt to try to capture this person to put him back in prison. And so we have our main character who, you know, obviously we find out that they were ex-lovers. This is a very queer normative world. I'm enjoying the characters. I'm enjoying the ride, but I just feel like in fantasy, you have to have things a little bit more fleshed out for me to fully immerse myself into this. So I think from here on out, I probably will take away fantasy novellas from my review list because I just don't feel like they're for me. Novellas work better for me in other formats like horror or little thriller novellas, whatever, but just don't work for me in fantasy because I'm looking for that hard fantasy story. But I'm going to continue to read on. I will come back when I finish to give my very, very final thoughts. Okay, let's talk about The Chase Begins because I finished it and my thoughts are virtually the same. I don't think that I should have read a novella. Same thing, just novellas don't work well with me, especially in the fantasy genre. I think this would work very well for somebody who likes a lot of action in their stories because I did think the story behind it was intriguing. I wanted to know more. I think the action was really well done. I even liked the characters. I just, you know, it's not for somebody who likes traditional fantasy where you have a lot of world building, a lot of characters, a lot of all of that. So, you know, overall, I ended up giving this one 3 stars. There was nothing wrong with the writing. The writing was great. Everything was great, except it just didn't wind up being for me. But with that being said, I am going to pull one more book out of the jar for this video. Here is the jar. Again, I don't know anything about any of these books in here. We are going to go with this one. Okay. This is Ocean Voyages. I don't know what this is, so let's look at it. I believe that this is by Jeremy Dwyer. I think Potion Voyages is the series and Castle and Conceit is #1 in that series. I think I could be wrong. I'll pop back in here if I'm wrong and I'll pop the book cover up here and I will check in when I get a little bit of ways into the story. All right, let's talk about this book. I'm going to DNF. I read about 2 chapters. The reason why I'm going to DNF this specific book is just a writing style issue for me. We are jumped right in there. There's a lot of dialogue, but not as much exposition. I don't understand what's going on, and sometimes that hinders me. Also, the writing style is just not my favorite. Every time we type out a number in parentheses, he puts the numbers. And I don't understand the reasoning behind that, and it's throwing me off with these parentheses and numbers. So we're also rolling dice and all of that, and that just isn't my cup of tea. But I do recommend still checking this one out if, you know, you like adventure stories. It looks to be like it was starting out on the high seas as she was driving a boat, but I just couldn't get down with it, and so we are going to pick one more book for this vlog. Let me get this. Okay, here we are. Okay, this is Legends of Celosia. I'm not sure what that is, but I'll pop back in when I figure it out. Okay, you're gonna see some really crazy in shambles house. Like literally my house has stuff piled everywhere because if you don't know, we're painting the entire house and the guy is just taking 5,000 years. I swear to God, he only works 3 to 4 hours a day, and so our house is never going to get painted at this rate. So as you can see, like he's painting the closets right now, so I have a racks of clothes in the room. I have like all this stuff around me. There's like stuff scattered. It's very, very difficult to film or to do anything with it, but so be it. I wanted to come in and talk to you about Legends of Celosia, book 1 by Moonlight Soldier. I have DNF'd this book after chapter 1. I am thrown out of a book when in the second paragraph we're talking about breasts and boobs and all of that. And so many times in the first chapter we got drilled into us that in this world people are just naked, and if you're wearing clothes it means something, but it means a higher status or you're a certain kind of person, but most people are naked, okay, including children who are riding on their grandfather's shoulders. I'm sorry, no. No. So I don't think I have to say anything else about this book. The writing was not terrible, but that throws me off. Over sexualizing any kind of fantasy book really throws me out of the story. I know that sexualization can be a part of fantasy, but when like literally it's cringeworthy and you don't, it's just cringe. So I'm not reading this. So I do still in this vlog want to read 3 complete books. So I've got my jar again, and we're going to draw again. Please get me a good book, y'all, please. This is going to be it. And I don't mean to be overcritical on things, but this is just the way that I personally feel. This is all of my thoughts and my feelings on books, and it's not meant to dissuade you from reading anything, but I just feel like, especially in this last book I read, trigger warnings. I mean, nobody wants to go into a book where, you know, they're reading things that they don't want to read. Okay, so I still have this one. This is it. Okay, so this is In Trust We Fall. So I don't know what this is, but I'm gonna look it up because I want to know. I think this one is by Tabitha Shipley, and I think it's a collection of short stories. This anthology features stories that revolve around ordinary topics like a school election or an unhappy marriage. It also contains stories with more imaginative topics like ghosts or an apocalypse. So there's like 10 stories. I'm gonna read it. We're gonna see how I feel about it, and I'll come in and tell you my thoughts. Okay, so In Trust We Fall. I am enjoying my time through this short story collection. I will say that I, again, like any short story collection, like some stories better than others, but I've read about 5 now, and I'm really liking it. I'm liking the thought, the way it makes me think. And at the beginning of every short story, the author kind of tells us a little bit of how she came to think of the short story that follows. And I liked that. I liked getting into her mind a little bit. She is a teacher, I believe. So that's very interesting to me. Her writing is very good. The prose is great. I think everything flows well, and I really think that she has great stories to tell. We've had some fantasy stories, we've had some sci-fi stories, we've just had some very just quiet literary stories that I really enjoyed this short story collection. I have to say, I really did. So I feel like that some of the stories are really hooking you from the beginning. The first story, we start out with this booth in this restaurant that is sentient, and he can kind of, if a couple sits in the booth, he can kind of give them their fortune of what their relationship will look like, and I really enjoyed that one. Then there was kind of a ghost story that I enjoyed. Then there is a story about a missing child that really gripped me because I am all about true crime and missing people. There's a story about a popular girl and a not so popular girl and an election, and then there's another story about love, and that I've read so far. And every single short story in this collection has to deal with, in some way, trust, right? In Trust We Fall. So some kind of lesson, some kind of thought-provoking thing about trust. And so I really have enjoyed this collection so far, and I'm going to keep reading and come back and let you know my final thoughts. So I finished In Trust We Fall, and I think that this was a very solid short story collection. I like the fact that it wasn't all like lit fic stories. It had some sci-fi stories in there. It had definitely some speculative fiction stories in there, and I just really liked that there was a lesson to every single story. Was every single story for me? Absolutely not, but I really liked that a lot of these stories made you think about things, and I would highly recommend this. And I normally do not recommend a lot of short story collections, so if you're looking for something to kind of wet your whistle with short stories, something that is thought-provoking, definitely pick this up. I think you would have a good time. So that's gonna end this journey of self-published reviews, and I am going to continue this series. I'm having a great time. Let me know if you want to be a part of this series. If you're an author and you want your book added to the jar, leave it down in the comments below, or follow me on X. You can leave it on there. I post sometimes comments asking for reviews there. So let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.